keep thinking of Bruce Lee because I want to be the guy that has practiced the one move 10,000 times, but I also want to be the guy that did the 10,000 moves once because there's so many things to get into.
Welcome to the Reality Capture Network, where we focus on technology-driven innovation, education, and community. The Reality Capture Network, bringing the future to you. On this episode of the RCN Podcast, the Reality Capture team lead in EIT at Eagle Engineering and Consulting, Alex Hill-Stosky.
Been in the Geomatics industry since 2014. So I went to go work on the Ottawa light rail transit system. For us, it was all about the control network and lots of layouts, lots of checks, lots of as-built. Reality capture is so versatile. There's so many different tools and applications.
A lot of companies who start getting into reality capture, they see the opportunities in all the industries and they start expanding. It's a very different skill set and process and workflow to create full-on civil 3D surfaces and survey type information than it is a BIM model with mechanical systems.
And those are going to give birth to more detailed plans and automation. There's so much more technology that's changing this industry. It's constantly evolving at an almost exponential level.
All right, welcome to the Reality Capture Network podcast. Today, we're excited to have another guest with us, Mr. Alex. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
All right, well, first off, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and kind of where you're joining us from today.
Sure. I'm Alex Hill-Stosky. So I'm actually based out of New Brunswick, Canada. Been doing reality capture professionally for just around 2 years now. Been in the geomatics industry since 2014. Was an early bloomer, like most people are in the geomatics industry for some reason. It's a very strange anomaly that we all kind of like come in later in life. But my younger brother actually graduated from a program in Nova Scotia from the Center of Geographic Sciences. And for 2 years, he was bombing around Canada and the United States, doing all kinds of surveys in all kinds of places, took some amazing photographs, told some terrible stories. And it all sounded like just a whole lot of fun. So he and I met up in the Alberta oil sands because it's like an East Coast tradition in Canada. You leave because there's no money, there were no jobs. Nova Scotia was actually kind of a bad spot just because we were bleeding since the 1980s. Most people, before COVID hit, people were literally abandoning their mortgages and going to live out west. Because there just wasn't anything here. And luckily COVID, brought that back to life. But I was one of those guys that emigrated out with everybody else, tried to find my fame and fortune, found neither. But while I was working in those oil sands, he and I got together and he, again, just kind of recapped what he did in school, what he was doing for work. And it sounded like a lot of fun, like a lot of puzzles and a lot of puzzle solving. So like, yeah, all right, I'll give this a try. Why not? Went to the school, had a blast, and it was in the middle of nowhere. So you had two options. You could drink or you could study. And I'm still alive, so I obviously did the latter.
Yeah, there you go.
But it was amazing. Lots of hands-on. So like I think a third of the time that you're in that particular school, so for 2 years, you're actually like handling the instruments, not just dealing with the theory, which of course is far more critical than the theory sometimes because, it takes you 15 minutes to set up a tripod. This is going to take a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a difference between that hands-on work and what they teach you, right?
Yeah, truly. And that's very much appreciated. Yeah. That hands-on experience that every summer job or job afterwards that I got to, not only am I keeping up with everybody else, but I'm teaching them tips and tricks, which was kind of nice.
Yeah. So when you first started, what kind of work were you working on?
So when I first left Cogs, again, it was 2014 when I went in, which of course was the economic downturn. 2016, things hadn't exactly come back yet, so it was really difficult finding any kind of employment, especially one that paid like a decent wage. So I ended up having only 2 job offers, which was very abnormal for the Center of Geographic Sciences. Usually when you get in there, you have 3 job offers within the first month, and then they're just waiting for you to come out. But this time, only 2. I had a choice between New Jersey and Ottawa, Ontario. And so I was, okay, well, I guess I'm staying north of the border. So I went to go work on the Ottawa light rail transit system, which was an amazing experience because it was construction surveying, but I had the above ground as well as subterranean work, and there was a lot of tunneling. So in the beginning, it was classified as a mining operation until they did the breakthrough, and then once it was all joined up, now it's classified as a construction area. So the rules change a little bit, but for us, it was all about the control network and lots of layouts, lots of checks, lots of as-built. Frame doesn't line up, we got to find out why and whose fault it is.
Yeah,
all that happy stuff. Interesting experience there. Within 30 days of starting there, we had this massive sinkhole form that swallowed a 4-lane road in the middle of downtown, in the middle of the nation's capital, just near our Parliament building.
Wow.
Oh, it was amazing because, well, unfortunately, a man did lose his vehicle. Nobody was hurt, thank goodness, but yeah, a man's vehicle was parked on the side of the road, swallowed it up, and we couldn't get it out. We just filled the hole in with concrete and kept
wow.
going.
Okay.
But it was an amazing experience.
As long as nobody gets hurt, I feel like if there's a sinkhole, you kind of want to see it eat something. That's
right.
It's an incredible natural, not something you get to see every day.
Yeah, truly. And the literature afterwards was great because, of course, Star Wars, I'm a really big sci-fi fan. So, that monster that comes out of the asteroid to try to get the Millennium Falcon, there's one of those popping out of there. Like, search Ottawa sinkhole, and there's some great images out there for sure.
I'm sure people had fun with that. That's incredible.
So that project itself, I was only there for about 18 months. And then the work dried up. I mean, they were going to transfer me to another city, but it was for no pay increase. And it was a 50% increase in the rent in the region. So I was like, so basically you're telling me to take a hike. And
yeah.
So once again, it was the economic downturn. Canada wasn't doing so well. So it was either go back to what I was doing before or double down on the education. So I enrolled at the University of New Brunswick in their engineering program. And then I just recently graduated from there 2 years ago. These guys got me as I was leaving. But it was serendipitous landing with my particular company. So I work with Eagle Engineering and Consulting. When I first met them, they were Eagle Telecom, but the reality capture, we'll get into that, but reality capture kind of changed the face of their business. But when it came to my capstone project, that end of the year thing that all undergraduate students have to do to prove competencies and whatnot, it was a toss up between hydrography or reality capture, because both of them are absolutely fascinating. But I chose reality capture because the smartest guy I knew was doing hydrography, and I knew I couldn't compete with him 1-to-1, so I went to the next best. So it was about finding an impactful project to emphasize this technology and emphasize its applications and where it's going. And so the capstone ended up being an evaluation of different reality capture systems. So we used a Trimble SX12 to do a scan of a historical building on the university campus. And then we repeated those scans with like a standard Samsung telephone using photogrammetry, depth of field mapping. Yep. And then we used a Microsoft HoloLens 2, which maps the environment as it's being used. It's a very passive system. But, and then the other one, I can't even remember at this point.
Yeah, been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a little while, lots of data going back and forth. Oh, dang. There was the Samsung, the HoloLens. They all failed. I guess that's the punchline there.
Yeah, there you go.
But basically, so the basic premise was, with the geospatial technology that's coming out, it is getting ridiculously easy to collect this information. And any amateur can do it now. You can download an app on your phone and start, recording whatever the heck. And the question that we wanted to address is, what is this going to mean for the digital twins moving forward? Is reality capture moving outside the realm of a geospatial professional? And the answer that we kind of came up with was yes and no. Because reality capture is so versatile. There's so many different tools and applications. And so if you're doing an engineering survey, I'm not going to take out my iPhone. But, if you want just a representation of your workspace to give people an idea of how to get around, if I can get you to within a foot of a light switch, you not finding it is kind of on you at that point.
Yeah.
So it just, oh, and the Matterport, that was the other one. So It was the Samsung, the HoloLens, and the Matterport were the three instruments that we used. And yeah, the Samsung was probably it was the least functional. And by that, I mean, I didn't get a ceiling. I didn't get most of my building just because it was too complex for the phone to handle.
Yeah.
But when it came to small details, that's kind of where it really shined. So, if you're doing a survey on a place and you wanted to catch the caps on columns that were just beautiful and ornate, you could laser scan it, or you could just walk around it a few times with a telephone and then just say, this is what it looks like, but those are the dimensions over there.
Yeah.
So it's the versatility of reality capture is really what's taking off, and the rapid collection of it all. Sorry, but I digress. So I'm doing this project, scanning all the areas, and I actually get put into the administration building. They keep an eye on me while I'm doing my initial control scanning, and this woman who's looking after me just kind of like, after a minute or two, so what are you doing anyway? And I nerded, man. I exploded, and I was just like, oh, this is laser scanning, and it's going to be used for this, and it's going to be amazing. It's opening these doors and analysis, and blah, blah, blah. Imagine this, imagine that. And she listened for about an hour, and she was very polite, very...
Yeah.
But at the very end of it, I thought I was losing her, and she just takes out this business card, and she starts writing on it, and then she hands me the card, and she's like, you might want to give my husband a call. And he's the head of the reality capture department here at Eagle. So
awesome.
Which was amazing. The reason it's even more significant is because East Coast, like I said, it's really hard to get in if you're not already. So graduating from the University of New Brunswick, I had job offers from Ontario to the other side of Canada. But when it comes to Atlantic Canada, it's always been a challenge. I've been trying to come back, but I can't because there's no work.
Yeah.
So the fact that I not only landed a job where I grew up, but it's in the industry that I want, that's starting in the industry, and it just was serendipity through and through. Follow the passion, share the passion, find like-minded individuals, and go on the ride together. And it's been incredible, absolutely incredible.
The part that I like about where you're at now, and even the story, your journey, is that you've not been doing this for 12 years. You're in the early phases still, and so many companies are. Many of us that have been in the industry for 10 or plus years, sometimes I think people get narrowed in on what they're working on, and they think that maybe laser scanning is commonplace now and everyone's doing it. And really, the more I talk with people, the more I realize there's probably only 20% of the companies that could fully be utilizing all these technologies have really gotten in. There's a lot of room for growth still. And so it's cool to be talking with you and your company in the early stages. You guys are a couple years in, so I'd love to dig into even that a little bit. As you joined the company and they're early on in it, share a little bit about what that looked like, and maybe what you guys have been working on the last couple years, maybe some of those changes.
Sure, yeah. So, like I said, started off as Eagle Telecom. So they had telecommunications design, consultation. It started off with just a teleheight. So, you've got your GPS, you're locating those poles, locating anchors, then you've got a very long stick with measurements that you kind of like touch things and you're like, it's this far away. It was good enough for their purposes. However, they did, start to get the idea, innovate. And that's when their reality capture journey really kind of started there. So they ended up, I suppose it was a bit of a gamble, but they ended up buying this Trimble MX7. So it's just a photogrammetry platform, a GNSS receiver on the top, IMU, and then, I think it's 6 cameras altogether, and just snapping photographs like every 3 to 7 meters as you drive down a road. And then between images, you're just doing that triangulation to find the general location. And, for a telephone pole, again, if I can get you to within even a meter of a telephone pole, if you can't find it, then that's not my fault.
Yeah.
So it made for really rapid data collection. So, all of these attachments were mapped really quickly. You could revisit the site whenever you wanted. If there were any questions, you just bring up the data instead of sending, a guy 4 hours away to go take a look, snap a photo, and come back. And it was so impactful to their business model that they started looking at other avenues and saying, how can we progress this even more? With that came in tangent increased standards for the measurements of those types of infrastructure. So, like, for example, on New Brunswick right now is a little loosey-goosey when it comes to some of those engineering standards. I kind of embellish there. They have standards. They're established. They want you to practice. But when it comes to a place like Ontario, they now want everything to a much more accurate degree.
Yeah.
They want full engineering. They want all the information of a particular pole, everything on it. Which, of course, if you're there in the field, it's going to take a lot more time. But if you're doing it on the digital realm, you're adding like a minute or two to each of your extractions, which is just it's been changing the game. So with the increase of those standards, they did a lot of research. They did a lot of testing. They ended up settling on a mobile map, on a particular mobile mapper, which. High precision laser. It's the laser distancing itself is accurate to within. So I'm not going to do that because that's a sales pitch. But the accuracy of the system allowed us to get within 5 centimeters of any given real world location, which is absolutely incredible by itself. But the fact that you can do it without GNSS, you can do it with GNSS loss and still maintain that kind of accuracy. I'm not talking about like long periods, but the guy with the stick has to wait there till it comes back while the person with the Pegasus, I just named my system,
that's all good,
can just keep going.
Yeah, that's great.
And it revolutionized things like crossings, which again require a high degree of accuracy in their measurements just to make sure that all the operational tolerances are there. But that was just the telecommunications side. They started using it there, but part of the telecommunications is municipal planning because there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to utility infrastructure. And that department started to grow a lot more outside of its portfolio. And one of the major projects that this thing was first used on that wasn't telecommunications was actually asset management in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is just next door. Doing tree audits for the city of Halifax. And, it was incredible. We managed to cover our entire area within a very small fraction of the time it would take to cover to get a person there. The reality capture technology unto itself, not only is it very rapid in identifying all of those features, but the software that's available now to analyze all that stuff and actually like get those dimensions that you would have thought were impossible even 10 years ago. The industry would have thought impossible.
Yeah.
When you're doing tree surveys, again, you're with a GPS stick and a measuring tape, and then you're filling in all these blanks. But, here in the office, we just say, where are all the trees? And, we bring them in and then we do the measurements. And there's still somebody in the field doing all that QC, but there's not, it takes a lot less time now because most of those answers are already there. They're just there to confirm them and then move on. And it's been a huge success to the point where we're doing it for them a second year, and there's a lot of other interest in it. Quite a few engineering surveys in cooperation with local universities. Again, because I always joke that Canada adopts technology after the United States proves that it can work. And Atlantic Canada is a step behind Canada. So we wait. Canada waits for you, and then we wait for Canada.
Yeah.
And so having that, get the word out is really, really important, especially in the Atlantic region, because everybody here is so set in their ways, and they want a faster way, they want it cheaper, but this is the way we've done it, and I don't trust it. Getting the word out, lots of the training portion of their mobile mapping was great because the fact that we got to choose whatever we wanted to choose. So the representative came down to teach us how it went, and then we're like, well, I want infrastructure, and I want construction sites, and I want picking out all these different places that we can just go have some fun. Was also amazing unto itself. But giving that information, we reached out to post-secondary institutions and said, we have this instrument. How would you use it? And I would like to look at it for urban mapping and flood mapping. Oh, great. Well, then we'll go downtown and we'll shoot, because Fredericton, New Brunswick Fredericton's the capital. And we have massive flooding problems. We use our downtown, we expect it to be flooded at least once a year now. We got lucky in the last 2, but it's been happening more and more, and it's of course getting higher and higher. So it's more essential for us to know not only flood water levels, but also where the floor elevations are of all of our buildings, so that we, there was one government department here. He said, the maps that we make are great because you know when your house is in danger, but you don't know how much danger you're in. So you might be in a flood zone, but it's coming really close. Or you could be in a flood zone and it's going to come up to your second floor, but you're still on the same map with the same degree of threat. And it's things like insurance companies. I'm sure that they're going to be very interested in that kind of coverage. And of course, the government, all they're interested in is exactly that, being able to tell people where their threats are and how their environment is going to change, so that people and the populace can be prepared for what's coming next.
Yeah.
And reality capture is paving that way. We're covering distances that they never would have dreamed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things that has made me so excited about reality capture, in and of itself, is that similar when I got started, it was really, my initial focus was in survey, and we were doing traditional survey work. It was once we started getting into all these new technologies that we were getting pulled into industries we'd never worked in and looking at new use cases. And really, it is paving its way to be its own, niche focus in its own industry, really, because there are certain tools and certain workflows that should be used, by a survey company in order to do topos or ALTAs or something. But then there's totally separate gear and processes that should be used for real estate, to use for architectural, or there's so many different applications. And the thing is, you can become a reality capture professional without being a professional in any of those other industries. And that's another big issue, is that, there's a lack of people who are already experts in this technology, and yet the desire for it and the use cases for it are growing. So it's become an exciting opportunity, and it's cool to hear, even over the last couple years, how, your guys' company is even shifting, and, you've been seeing new applications and new opportunities and expanding by using these tools. And so I guess even maybe explain, is that where the name change came from?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, if telecommunications was their bread and butter, but all of their Eagle Telecom was Eagle Telecom. They had a mapping department, they had a municipal planning department, and then the reality capture department was only a year old before they dropped the name altogether, because reality capture changed that game. But each department, of course, gave birth to a new facet for us. So, the municipal and the GIS are what's aiding the Halifax map, the Halifax urban forest project is what it's called. But each of our departments has brought a new client or a new application, or some guy working in telecommunications comes to us and says, this would be really useful for underground vaults, because, it costs this much to do it, and a revisit happens at least 3 times. So if we could, go once and only for 15 minutes, that'd be beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just bringing in, like you said, you don't have to be a professional in these industries in order to aid those industries anymore. But the challenge is the communication. And I don't just mean what do you need from the client, or the client's ability to communicate what they want while you communicate what you can give them, but also software. So one of the largest challenges that I have is not only just meeting with a client and finding out exactly what they want, because they know what they want, but they don't know what we can provide. And then we don't know what they want, but we know what we can provide.
Yeah.
So finding that common ground, but then also knowing what software that they use, because as much as we want to disrupt industry, we also can't disrupt industry too much. So, we're not going to tell everybody, stop using CAD, go with MicroStation, that you'll be fine. It's about adopting what we produce into their software and making it so that it's not only easy to read, but more efficient too. So really giving them that return on investment and saying, if you change your processes now, not only is everything going to get better, but it's going to get easier. And of course, there's a lot of work involved in that, but yeah, that's half the fun of it too. I love getting those phone calls that says like, "Oh my God, I wish we were doing this like 6 years ago."
Yeah, yeah. I think you definitely hit on, what you're saying. One of the challenges is, I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for the last 10 years and still is today, is that the capture process is becoming easier, becoming faster. People are adopting it. They love it. It's visual. But then there's the big question mark of, what do you do with the data?
Yes.
And is it actually useful to the client? Most today, even though the industry's growing, it's expanding, I would say 90% of the clients cannot take a point cloud and use it. So we're still at the point that their end goal is typically today to receive a deliverable that they're used to. So though scanning is faster and the data is beautiful and they get visual or images or any of that, supportive data, I think most industries and most clients still are saying, okay, yes, but we want a CAD deliverable, or we want a MicroStation deliverable, or we want a Revit deliverable, or we want something that goes into our team, the way they work, the way they're used to, with their standards, with their model types, whatever it is. And so that becomes a challenge, because a lot of companies who start getting into reality capture, they see the opportunities in all the industries and they start expanding, and yet it's a very different skill set and process and workflow to create full-on Civil 3D surfaces and survey type information than it is a BIM model with mechanical systems. And so a lot of people try to take on all of it, and I think there's challenges that happen there too. It's like the Wild West though. So many tools, so many workflows, so many softwares, and now everybody that gets into it has to figure out, okay, how do I piecemeal together this ecosystem that helps me reach, the type of work or the industries we're working in.
Sure. Yeah. And the plethora of tools is a blessing and a curse at the exact same time, especially for those that don't actually understand the industry. We had one client, potential client, send us information saying, we want top of rail and a bunch of topographic information for this point cloud. And then they send it to us, and it's one of those government collected aerial LiDAR things from like 30,000 feet. And it's just like,
yeah,
I'm not going to get you top of rail from that, buddy. Like, I'll get you the ground, sure. But just explaining those little details to people, or, having to explain that a point cloud looks good. So this technology, you're right, it is so easy now, and I love it, but it's terrifying at the exact same time, because my data processing, even from when I started 2 years ago, there was a massive process, lots of checks, lots of cross-references, lots of stuff you have to do. But now you just take the file that you made, you add a little GPS base data, and then you just throw it in the program, and it's like, there you go. If you don't know what you're doing, it looks great.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
Oh man, this is perfect. I put it in, I process it, it stops, and now I got it. And it's like, well, no, we have to do your alignments, and you have to do your checks, and you need to, if you're going to be mapping something out, then you need to know that, the thickness of your point cloud is enough to give you that kind of certainty in what you want from it. And so it is all about choosing the right tool for the right job. And unfortunately, there's no central location where you can go to get this kind of, like, these are the things that are available to you. And, good luck to the person who decides to try that, because it's all evolving all the time. And it's amazing, but exhausting. Just trying to stay on top of it all. Like, what's new now? But that's the excitement of it too. So like, I'm talking to so we have a parent company, and they wanted to know why we're spending so much money. And so I was like, well, these are the things that we're buying, but these are the things we could. And even in the research of those types of instruments, finding breakthroughs like, 3D mapping using Wi-Fi signals, out of the University of somewhere that I can't remember now. And just being able to put that in a presentation and be like, can you tell me more about that? Like, no, I can't, because it's 2 weeks old. I'll wait. I'll wait a little longer to before I start explaining that. But the other problem there, it's a grand old adventure. You've got all the instruments, but of course, I think you probably recognize this a long time ago. There's no prices with those instruments. It's just come buy your thing. you got to reach out to them, and then you start the dialogue. But one thing that we've been finding a lot with this industry, and it's not any one particular vendor, it's they'll tell you what the price is for the instrument. And then you're like, great, you work your budget, you work out how it's going to work out, and you're like, yeah, we can do this. Let's get it. And they're like, oh yeah, no, but you need to buy the software that collects the information. I'm like, what? You're telling me that we need a brain for the body we want to buy? Like, yeah, they're like, okay. So you buy it, and then they're like, okay, so now we got this data. Oh yeah, you got to process it. So now you got to buy our other thing. And you're like, well, let's like, it's getting to the point where we're contacting them and like, we want a price list. And then when we get it, like, are you sure? Like, because of the fact that, it's just, you take a $120,000 instrument and now all of a sudden it's $210,000 and it's a reoccurring thing. And so you've not just bought an instrument, you now have a new staff member. And so it's like, okay, I really would have appreciated that up front, boys. And so it's those kinds of challenges. So not only do you have to find the right instrument with the right tolerances inside your price range that fits your job, like we are professionals in that because of all those questions. Like we are the ones that need to find those answers because it's so easy it's like Googling medical stuff. You're going to get an answer, but it's not what you think. Yeah. So it has been a wild ride and amazing. Just not only applying these technologies, but finding what's out there and finding what works for us. But then you find the thing that doesn't quite work for you, but then it sparks your imagination. You're like, oh, I could take this over here. And so even things like avatars, human avatars, the metaverse was supposed to be this big thing, but commercially it's starting to become very viable. While, personally it kind of fluttered out. Yeah. But there's lots of applications for those types of things. But again, going back to that price point, one thing that I am finding for most of those is most commercial enterprise endeavors that you can pursue with these types of instruments, the pay to play is basically kind of the way that everything is going. It's prohibitive in its price, which sucks because you need to already have those resources or be successful before you can pursue the passion. Lots of people that I know love to do 3D scanning or love the idea of it, but they don't have the tools. And that's why I really appreciate open drone mapping. I'll have to find the name of it, but lots of third-party software out there to make those kinds of things a little bit easier on people. Like Cloud Compare. Yeah. All hail Cloud Compare. Gotta love them. Yep. QGIS, those kinds of people that bring almost competitive software relatively free of charge. I know, QGIS, if you use particular functions, then now you have licensing and things you got to pay for. But trials last for 2 weeks, but it takes months to learn something. Oh yeah. It takes years to get good at it. So sure, we can try it, but there's no way to develop your skills unless you're in it. And then if you're in it and you don't have the skills, you're running a pretty high risk, man. Yeah, exactly. That's, all of that is kind of why we're trying to make this shift with RCN to try to create, and I don't think we'll ever reach the end goal of having all the latest information but I look at the difficulties that I see that many of us that have been in it for a long time have gone through, and companies that are newer are going through it still, and companies that are about to get into it, next year, they're starting from scratch, Googling everything, looking for, and so as I see the adoption interest grow and the industry grow, it made me just step back and say, wouldn't it be cool if there was a go-to place that it's like I could look at comparisons of different collection tools. I could look at case studies of how the different tools were applied in different industries and what the outcomes were. And, I could, take a course on like an ideal workflow for, reality capture in architecture or oil and gas or telecom or whatever it is. There's enough information and enough people who have gone through the headaches today
And now I'm like, okay, let's create this community of collaboration and sharing and educating in order to help each other through difficulties, but also to build this process that it allows people to learn easier, and it helps create a go-to place to figure out what new softwares are out, what new hardware is out, and again, best practices and workflows. And because all of us that go and buy our first scanner or we get into modeling or whatever, we are learning the hard way, and we have to take the risk up front of saying, well, I think that's the right tool. I've never used it. 2 weeks isn't long enough to fully evaluate it. And so we end up spending all this money and buying a piece of gear. And then, 2 months later, we see the one over here we didn't know existed. And we're like, dang it, that was the right tool.
Right?
And so it's difficult.
Yeah, drones unto themselves, because again, we're always looking to the future, right? And so they're just like, hey, Alex, go dream for a little while, go make a shopping list, and so that was fun. But drones by itself, I had 52. Okay, so first, I didn't consider anything Chinese or DJI. International issues being what they are, they're a liability to any operation in North America, really. They're Chinese based. They are on that end of the string. And in Canada, it's very obvious to most of us that they are not going to be nice. They have a very high ability to not play nice. For example, they're the Huawei, the big cell phone company, their representative, their CEO was arrested in Vancouver. And for, I think it was a year or two, immediately after the day after she was arrested, 2 random Canadians were arrested on espionage charges. And they said, it's not related. But after the Meng Wanzhou, the CEO of Huawei, was released, then they're like, oh yeah, you can have your people back now. And that really opened up our eyes to the security. So you've got the cybersecurity side of things where, again, I never really understood this. Like an update goes to a network and they say, oh, don't worry, the network is not in China. Well, the company's in China, which means that they can put things into their software that will now be on your computer, which is now, DJI, for example, your spatial information as to where the drone went is accessible to them, which means that they don't have your spatial data, but they definitely know where you're collecting it.
Yeah.
So we moved away from Chinese markets because it's a threat. And especially with things like telecommunications or government infrastructure, that's a huge liability. So trying to keep it what we've been coining as Five Eyes friendly. So, Australia, Great Britain, United States, New Zealand, anywhere where these are the companies or countries that we're looking at for these kinds of solutions. So between the United States and Australia, there's some sick toys, man. So good. I identified 52 different platforms that would have applied to us within. Yeah, well, no, that's it. Yeah, I did 52 and I was exhausted. But my brother, like I said, he graduated from the same program. He's just as excited as I am, but he's career military now. But he still has side projects, and he built his own list. He's like, hey, why don't we compare? So between us, I think we only had about 7 or 8 in common, and then so he had another 50, and I had 50. So
jeez.
But then even then, that's just the drone platform, not including the payloads and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So just like it's been so incredible. Just so many different toys, so many different applications too. There's this one company in Quebec, Balco Technologies, he's taking all those aerial platforms and then adding their own computers to it and adding their own trajectory refinement methods and dampening systems. But the thing that's making it truly very interesting is the fact that it's all interchangeable. So it's a single computer, and then you just attach your Regal LiDAR to it, or you attach your 100 megapixel camera to the other end, and then you're operating, and it all works under the same software. That learning curve gets reduced, but wherever you go, there's going to be a massive learning curve. The risk gets mitigated as you understand how these things work, and of course the training programs to go with. That was a bit of a digression, though. I even forgot about the topic that we're on.
Yeah, no, again, it just brings to light the fact there is so many tools out there. There's so many options, and I get excited when I see other people who get excited about the technologies and they're passionate about it. They want to learn. And then the magic starts happening when you also find companies who the leadership see that and start creating a culture that is open to innovation and gives, whoever that passionate or champion is within a company, gives them the freedom to explore. And that, I think, is how we currently help companies, adopt and build new technologies into their processes and transform workflows. The difficulty is there's a lot of companies who don't have people who are passionate and excited and want change and want new, and it takes that charge in order for really that innovation process to begin within a company.
I envy those people, though. Eagle by itself, I very much enjoy this company. They are very fostering for innovation, and to the point where our president was so excited about reality capture that he got, you're going to lunch and learn the entire company, and not just our company, but our sister companies. So that, and it was so much fun because, you had to cater to who they were, dull things down a bit, sharpen things up to appeal to their particular industry. But it was so much fun, not only telling them and sharing that excitement with them, but then getting that excitement back. Like, could you use this with these technology? Like, yeah, you can do that. And then just watching them start rolling with it. And I'm truly envious of the one in those I can't say undeveloped, but just not even non-innovating, but just shy, I guess would probably be the most constructive word to use. The ones inside those shy companies that bring that information to their company, because they're going to change everything. Having someone go to that, you're right. The case studies just aren't there. And there are a lot of applications for this, and there's a lot of solutions. And like you keep saying in your podcast, it sucks that there's the competitive nature of it just naturally. There, capitalism. You gotta make money in order for your business to keep going. So I totally understand why people are holding back that knowledge, because we're going to start cutting into their market eventually. Yeah. It's not there yet, and I think it needs that environment of fostering rather than close guarded competition. But like we've been saying, even just in this podcast, there's so many different applications for it and the world's actually a pretty big place. Yeah. There's lots of opportunity out there for this kind of, for that kind of innovation. And even just automation by itself is, a huge one for reality capture because of all the details. Asset management is huge because the fact that, again, you're in there for 15 minutes and now I've got your entire scene. So I don't need to come back. SLAM system. So I am a committee member of an expo that's happening in Calgary in November called the SLAM Scanoff. And that's kind of one of our goals was to have that kind of awareness of systems and what's out there and applications, and just trying to increase awareness of reality capture, but SLAM systems in particular, because of the fact that the benefit is incredible as long as it's the right system. Something like the VLX, you can go into a site and, you got a 3-minute startup process. The Gexel Heron has no startup process. You just turn it on and you go. And not only are you able to just rapidly deploy, but you're walking around like a normal member of a scene. And so your disruption is negligible at best. Somebody's got to get a warning that a new guy is showing up for 30 seconds, but then you walk around and then you say goodbye and you carry on. Yep. And those are going to give birth to, more detailed plans and automation and allowing robotics and to maneuver through known environments rather than having to learn them all at the same time. Like, I can't wait until things like aerial LiDAR data is married with internal scans so that your delivery robot not only knows where your house is, but that you got to go up to the 5th floor, 40 meters down the hallway and drop it off on the door on the left. Like, incredible stuff coming in the future, and mix that with artificial intelligence and hot dog, man.
Yeah, it's Yeah, and that's again why I just love talking about it. Is I think that the opportunity in front of us in the next 10 years is way bigger than anybody in the industry thinks it is. I think it is going to get to the point that every type of industry and every project is using a mix of reality capture tools, technology, the data, the opportunity there for companies to help with capture, to help with processing, to help with deliverable creation. I do not believe there are enough companies doing it today to support the work that will be there in the next few years.
Absolutely.
And it all comes down, again, like what you're talking about here, it just comes down to, and we've said it 100 times, the right tool for the right job. There's that whole mix of, do we use terrestrial? Do we use mobile? Do we use a drone? And we always have to start at the end, and well, it depends on the use case of this data or this collection for this client. How accurate does it have to be? Is it a eighth of an inch because we're doing steel fabrication, or is for it locating a pole within a meter? Because then it all changes. And that's where, right now we just have to keep trialing and testing and figuring it out on our own. And and that's also why I go back to why I think collaboration over competition will help us get to that goal of more business, is that if we really help everybody in our community iron out the best workflow for them and the best tool for them and the collection process, now every company working in every industry is becoming more efficient. The projects are getting delivered successfully. They're not having issues that were unexpected or poor data or inaccurate data. Everyone's doing better, which helps all the end clients and all the end owners in those industries who are paying and funding the projects to want to do more because it's becoming successful. And now it's going to create more work regionally instead of companies flying all over the place. We're going to have individual projects that want ongoing capture and monitoring. And so I think it's going to create a lot of opportunity everywhere. Absolutely.
Even just mobile mapping by itself, taking into account things like climate change. It's not uncommon now for an entire city to burn down. We keep telling everybody as we're introducing this technology, you don't want it after the event. You want it before the event and after the event. So there's no such thing as too much data. From a logistic point of view, yes, there is. But, when it comes to information and analysis, there really isn't. So having something as simple and routine as mobile scanning data so that when those big events happen, you have a much better view of what's going on. I'm sure it's the same in the northeastern United States when all across the eastern seaboard when a hurricane hits. The Canadian government is not alone when they go to a contractor and say, just fix it. And then give us a bill and tell us what you did.
Yeah.
So having that kind of information, and then, before disaster, knowing what was there, after the disaster, knowing what was done, and then after the repair, knowing how it was fixed, are all fundamentally crucial to accountability. And to, we've all had those in civil infrastructure projects where it's taken, 3 years longer than it was supposed to. And multitude of reasons. I'm not saying that spatial information was the cause of their delays, but having that kind of information on hand is invaluable to being able to understand not only where you are but where you're going.
Yeah.
So it just no, you're absolutely right. There's so many applications, even tailors. I love the idea of, like I said, those avatars, and one of your pitch session. I'm very curious about that. Because I have ideas, but I don't have the means. It basically is what it is. So I love that idea because again, that fosters innovation. But even just 3D human avatars, you've got the medical industry, and then you've got the tailoring industry. So you want your Versace suit made in Italy. Well, you don't have to go there. You just show up in a booth, they take your picture, and now they've got all of your dimensions for a perfectly tailored suit.
Yeah.
3D avatars. One thing I really admired, there was a company in Calgary that was doing a memorial project for a graveyard. And it was more mixed reality. It wasn't reality capture, But and so what you do is you go through this Soldiers Memorial Graveyard, and you can look at their graves with your HoloLens, and it'll give you a picture of them, and it'll give you their service record and a quick story of who they were. And in the future, I would love to see something where you go to your grave to not only visit your loved one, but to see them. And, they're standing there and you can converse with them. And then, of course, the next natural step with that in adopting artificial intelligence is taking their library of who they were with social media and emails and all this stuff, putting it into the model so that not only can your ancestors talk to you after you're gone, but you can get that perspective that you did. Like right now we have this thing, and probably not so much in the United States, but in Canada, First Nations relationships are very important, and we're starting to realize some of us are starting to realize what we did to them.
Yeah.
And of course, it's led a lot of problems with memorials being destroyed because they represent oppression, or there's a lot of upheaval about what we represent in our public. So yeah, being able to reach back into the past and ask a person from 100 years ago, why did you feel this way? Is just as critical as your infrastructure. Again, knowing where we are. In order to know where you are, you need to know where you've been. And in order to know where you're going, you need to know where you are. So it's all that back and forth, and just all this integration of reality capture. It's just limited by our imagination and the price.
And that's where that's where I start to see the mix of what the metaverse, the industrial metaverse, the digital twin, really what I think the future is going to look like. Like, it really is going to have immersive and AR and digital overlay and, digital replicas of everything everywhere. And like you're saying with some of these ideas, you're saying it's limited to our imagination, and it is. And the other thing I love just reminding people is anything that has happened up to today, somebody thought of at one point and pursued it. If somebody didn't pursue it, it would have never happened. So the more, we sit here and think about, wouldn't it be cool if in the future cars were driving by themselves? Well, that's only going to happen if companies are investing and someone has the idea and someone's doing it.
Yep.
And,
thank you, Mr. Musk.
Yeah. So as we as a community talk about ideas and share perspectives and say, hey, what about this technology for this use and this technology for this use? Well, we're creating these ongoing conversations with the whole community that works on these technologies, builds the technologies, creates businesses around services. We as a community can actually take these ideas and implement. And that's kind of where some of our idea for this, startup pitch idea came from. Is I'm like, there's so many people who have ideas and there's brilliant minds out there, but a lot of times they keep it to themselves. They don't want to maybe go start a business around it, or maybe they shouldn't. Maybe not. Yeah. However, creating a way for people to start sharing those ideas and get feedback on it. And again, maybe you're going to have the right ear listening that says, that is incredible. We've been pursuing that. We want, help, or you never know.
Oh, it's true though. Mr. Elon Musk, as controversial as he may be, is a perfect example of that. Not only did he, almost single-handedly restart the electric car industry, but he was told straight up, you're absolutely nuts. This is not commercially viable. And yet, same with his rocket program. But yet there they are. And, SpaceX is definitely doing way better than Tesla, but they're still doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But having that kind of, those kinds of people pushing the envelope forward and actually bringing this technology, especially in the face of people saying you're nuts or it won't work, because your business model might not work, but that might be just because you're missing a critical component rather than you have a wash. So you're right, sharing that idea, it might not work for you, but it might work for your team later. And so it's just, no, I love what you're doing, because you're sharing it and you're getting those ideas out to get that churning.
And I don't want to mislead people or push them too hard, but I also just realize there's so many people who when it comes to just mindset and fear, and like there's a lot of people who just don't take that next step. They have this great idea and it really is the next big thing, but people are afraid to take a step. They're afraid of risk. And, I don't think entrepreneurship, I don't think starting a business is for everybody. I don't think that everyone even has to do that. Sometimes it's just like, even the fear to bring up an idea within the company you work at because you think it's maybe silly or too far, or and then there's the whole other piece of sometimes people share something and again, you get told that's crazy, that's never going to work. And we let the outside noise dictate our decisions. One of the pieces of advice that stuck with me in an interview with another successful business owner was never outsource your intuition. Nobody else knows the background that you have, the perspectives you have, the experiences you've had, the relationships, the industries. If you have an idea because of everything that you've learned and the things you've seen of why you think it would work, but then we listen to someone else who is outside that, realm, doesn't understand it, and they say it won't work. It's like, you can't let that make your decision for you. When you have that feeling and you see that vision, if you truly want to go for it, like, do it.
Right. Yeah. And that support network is truly critical too. I mean, even just said, Atlantic Canada is usually the last one to adopt anything. So we are doing a lot of convincing, which of course, convincing doesn't happen overnight. It takes, many, many meetings and a lot of trust. And so it is really easy to get caught in that process and go, this is never going to work.
Yeah.
And of course, it's just self-defeating talk because you're not getting traction right now. But, if patience sucks, man. You got to have it though.
I have to throw in there because I keep saying this one, but I love it because anytime that conversation comes up, I'm like, when you step back and look at great innovators, that was always one of the ingredients. Thomas Edison.
Yes.
10,000 iterations of the light bulb. And then I point to us in our industry and I say, at what iteration of the light bulb would you have quit or given up and said, it's not going to work? It's, they didn't adopt it on test 1, or, we tried scanning and this project failed. Okay, well, fix the problem, figure out what you did wrong and try again and try again and try again until you build a workflow that works for you, that works for your projects, that works for your industry. The answer can't always be, if it's not perfect on test 1, that it's a failed, opportunity. You have to, again, reframe your mindset of failure into, learning,
degrees of success.
Yeah. What didn't go right? And then change that thing and try it again, and know that patience and is part of that process, especially in our industry where we're dealing with so many tools, so many technologies, so many workflows. Things are changing. There's going to be a lot of failures. There's going to be a lot of things that get messed up. It's really about continued education through that process.
And limiting the damage.
Yes. Yes. So try to fail in a test environment instead of, on the critical project.
Yeah, exactly. You don't exactly want to be the guy that buys the instrument to go do the job. You want to have the instrument before the job gets done.
Yep, absolutely. We've talked a lot about kind of the journey of getting into it, what you guys are doing now. And you've even shared a few ideas and, some futuristic looking things. When it comes to the work you're doing now, the technologies you're hands-on using, what are some of the things that are working well that you're enjoying working on right now? What's some of your passion projects in the company?
I am all about the internal scans. I don't know. When it comes to historical preservation is kind of my thing. Like, I love history, but engineering pays better. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, the pursuit that I took. If I can ever introduce those interests, then that's just wonderful for me. So yeah, those kinds of projects, especially historical preservation, I will always get up super early for those. But yeah, no, all of them. I can't say if there's any one in particular. And I keep thinking of Bruce Lee because I want to be the guy that has practiced the one move 10,000 times, but I also want to be the guy that did the 10,000 moves once. Cause there's so many things to get into. What's working for us, obviously that communication thing is huge because I can't collect all this data on my own. So being able for me to understand the systems, but then engineer the program in a way, the department in a way that we can bring in a technologist who doesn't need to know all the little fine details, but still has the materials that they need in order to do the job and address those critical things that we expect to come up in the course of a day. So having those packages ready for people that we bring in is super important because we all have labor issues.
Yeah.
If we're, there's always going to be an understaffing problem, and you always got to get somebody caught up to speed somewhere to get back up to your production schedule. And so that revolving door of professionals that you may have, for us, it's not really a revolving door. It's just, again, finding those people that are able to actually do the work and understand it and have the same kind of passion for it. A laser scan is relatively easy, but only if you invest yourself in it while you're doing it. That's when it's effective. And so, having some guy come in because it's a paycheck and, I'll go paint it with some light and, they better be happy with that. That's not what we're looking for.
Yeah.
But those passionate ones, they tend to not know, reality capture on the East Coast Canada. Most people aren't familiar with it at all. So not only getting them up to speed on what you're doing in the job, but the technology itself. I think that's probably the thing that's working the best right now is just making it so that anybody can literally pick it up and use it. And then we're just there to support them. And then having those support systems at the home office so that if there are any issues, we're always there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that conversation around, wanting people that are passionate. And I think that it's a great opportunity to raise awareness to this industry, the career opportunity in it, now, and it's a growing industry and it's a growing need, and everyone is going to be hiring for people in scans and drones and point clouds, and there's not this whole big resource of people that already know how to do it well. So for people who are kind of in a position or an industry or a job they don't enjoy, or they're coming out of school and you don't know what you want to do yet, if you're just someone that's willing to learn and become a passionate worker, man, you can get in, you can learn quickly, and in a couple years, you're now one of the advanced people, because that's the level the industry is at. A couple years is decent experience now. And there's not very many industries that you can enter at an entry-level, zero experienced role and get to that position in a couple years without some long history, training, degree, or whatever. So it's really an honest, great career opportunity for people.
I always get taken aback, even just with the geodesy. So my engineering degree is in geodesy and geomatics engineering. For those who don't know, geodesy is just a study of the gravitational fields of on a planetary scale. And the measurement systems involved with, all of that stuff. But it's incredible to think that industry unto itself, that field, the discipline of study, is only 30 years old. These departments only opened in the 1980s, and they married the survey department, and they move forward together now because, well, it just matches. It's a beautiful mix, but it's so young, and there's so much more technology that's changing this industry. So not only did this industry, it's very young, but it's constantly evolving at an almost exponential level. Having to keep up, you need passion in order to be in this industry, because if you don't, every day is going to be like, now what? You're learning something.
Yep. Well, that's great. I'm excited to continue watching you guys and have you as a part of our community. You guys have always given great feedback and support to what we're building, and we're excited, and I'm excited to find more people who are excited. It's great to build that community of like-minded people who can talk about the technologies and converse together and share successes and share failures. Again, I believe that doing that on a larger scale with companies around the world and companies from different industries, we're going to create these new ideas. We're going to mix the proper technologies. again, I keep saying this, we together can build the future. Like that is what we're doing.
Teamwork makes the dream work, man.
It does. Well, yeah, I appreciate all your shares. Love to still open it up if you have any last things you'd kind of like to hit on.
Well, I'm still waiting for, so like I said, I'm a sci-fi guy. I'm waiting for my R2-D2 unit. Like, can you imagine a surveyor going out in the field and then you know, this robot kind of rolls out and you're like, yeah, go over there, scan this, check into that control, go pick up these things and then do a full scan over there. And then, you know, you're talking to it like they do. You're like, what are you doing over there? No, you're supposed to be over there.
And it's like, yelling back at you.
Yeah, it's exactly chirping back attitude. Like, you're frustrating me, but I respect you.
Yes.
And then there's one last shameless plug is again that there is a Go Geomatics Expo happening in Calgary, November 6th, 7th, and 8th. But prior to that is the SLAM scan off. So again, we're talking about all this technology, and this is an inspiration from GeoWeek, which you are at, and a huge respect to the US IBD. It was a marvelous idea where they had their own scan comparisons, but it was terrestrial LiDAR scans, and huge value to the industry just being able to have that kind of information, and again doing those kinds of analysis. But seeing SLAM systems coming up. You know, the BLK 360 or BLK to go, for example, you know, it's got its uses. And then the VLX is kind of on the other side of the data collection where it's got its uses. It's getting really good. You know, the Gexel Heron is I feel that's a direct competitor to VLX just on the quality and, the problem, and again, we've been talking about this, the data collection speeds and the data quality of it all is really becoming fundamental to moving forward, but we have no forum to figure out which one is truly your fit. So the whole point of the scan off is to have, again, that centralized place where you can look at the tools that are primarily available, because we're only really opening it to people that are commercially making their units available. I know there's a lot of engineering firms out there like the iPhone LiDAR scanner. Some guys are, you know, buying 4 or 5 phones and then hooking it up to an IMU, and then now they're trying to turn it into a SLAM system, and which is amazing, and I love them and I respect them. But the objective is to move the industry forward.
Yeah.
So to make all this information available in one place, so that not only can you see the quality of the point clouds that are gotten or that are acquired, but also being able to break them down, not by their data sheet per se, but performance, and then including those pricing lists, so that again you know what you're getting into before you touch it. Because again, we're spending a lot of time just looking at what's right, and so just having that one place that could tell us which ones are right, or at least summarize the data points for us, is going to be a huge game changer in moving forward.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we want to foster, is we want to bring everybody. We don't want Canadian companies. We don't want American companies. We want the globe to come and share with us what you're doing. Because I joke that Canada adopts after the United States, but what happens to the United States is following Europe. Reality capture really was born in the United States, but Europe took it way farther. And then, East Asia, they're nuts for it. It's incredible. Not Jakarta, Singapore, I think, is going for a full digital model of not only their city, but once the city model is done, they want their country. And so just looking at these guys, be like, tell me what you're doing, tell me what you're using and how.
Yep. Because all of that's going to keep spreading. It's going to come. And again, that's that future. I literally think we'll be to that process of mapping and modeling and digital twin of every asset on Earth. Like, I think that's the direction it's going.
It only makes sense, really. It's got its own challenges unto itself. Privacy is going to be a massive problem. Like mobile mapping has been very interesting because there's a lot of people not friendly towards Big Brother who see a massive camera driving through their neighborhood.
Yep.
So it's lots of challenges there. But no, you're right. When it comes to infrastructure, this is going to be the foundation of a great many things. especially when drones start becoming a part of our everyday lives. I can't wait until we're mapping out aerial travel corridors for delivery drones, creating that airspace bubble that they're going to need to move forward. And you're going to need a total digital city of every clothing line between their start and finish locations. It's coming, man. It's going to get busy, and it's going to get really busy.
Yep, it's an exciting future. Well, yeah, I think the tests and things that you guys are doing are awesome. That's the type of information we want to see more of, because, again, the more case studies, the more tests of data that we can create, it helps all of us make informed decisions, because, frankly, nobody has time to go test every single system. And
they don't have time to come to you.
Yeah. So, the more that we can create, in fact, we have a couple presentations at our conference this year where, people have done some test site where they use several different devices, between drone and terrestrial. And again, to try to show people what's the differences in these data and how accurate really are they, and how do you tie them to control, and which one should be used for what. But nobody can do all the systems. So I bet between the two happening at our event, the one happening at your event, the one USIBD, that's why I like this idea of a collective education center, is that if we collaborate with everyone and we start sharing those together, well, we're going to learn from yours, you're going to learn from theirs. It's this one spot to try to really digest a bunch of information to be more informed. And we need more people in the industry to be doing that. And then not only doing it, but sharing it. So many companies out there, the last 15 years, have created case studies and tests, and they're doing it today, but then it just disappears. They make their decision, they buy their gear, and all of that testing, all that knowledge, all of that experience just sticks right there in that one test, and it goes unnoticed.
Yep.
And that's
Until
where I'm
it's stagnant and useless.
Yeah, and that's where it's I want to create the community to say, this is a place for you to share and to learn from. It's not for me to educate you. It's a community for you guys to educate each other.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's nothing better than sitting in a room with a bunch of people that are passionate, man, because that's when the conversation truly never stops.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your time today, sharing your story, sharing the journey of where your company's at. And again, excited to continue the conversations. I'm sure it won't be the last time we do this or have some conversations together.
I look forward to it, man, very much. And yeah, I would love to see you at the Go Geomatics Expo. That'd be great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I definitely will follow up with you, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. And, like we always say, we'll keep building the future together.
All right. Nice to talk to you.
All right. Thank you very much for joining today. We'll see you guys next time.